Welcome aboard, everybody. This is Beaver Politics. Today's show is Radicalized with your host, Mr. Radical. Remember, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. Beaver Politics is by the peoples, for the peoples. We are knowledge through discourse. We want to have open conversations about some of the hottest topics that are going on, and we are spread across the spectrum. So, whatever your beliefs, whatever your background, you're going to find a host here on Beaver Politics that you can connect with personally, if not the entire Beaver Politics program, because we have one goal in mind, and that is open discourse and gaining knowledge from it. That is the only way that we are going to improve the human species. So I wanted to welcome aboard everybody that's just joining the show. Smarshy and Miss Radical are going to join me here in the boxes for right now. I'm going to do a brief intro on the first topic. And the first topic that I wanted to introduce today was the belief that the right is not voting in their best interest. And this is where I somewhat vehemently disagree that they absolutely are voting in their best interest. And the definition really is what is their best interest, because their goals and the goals of the left are very polar opposite. The stance that I came to with this is one of the main reasons that we kind of have this disparagement between the left and the right side is that the right side, the scope of their worldview is far narrower than the left. The scope of the worldview in the right side tends to be very narrow and confined to their immediate people, to their immediate surroundings, and particularly their immediate family. Now, what are their best interests? So, really, their best interests always come down to the three R's, and I've spoken about the three R's before often. The three R's are the things that people will mass unalive for. They are your race or your region, they are religion, and they are race. Now, if you've ever had an opportunity to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of the things that Maslow's hierarchy of needs doesn't really point out well, and if you're not familiar, Maslow's hierarchy of needs basically lists all of the things that a person would need, from physical to spiritual and mental, to have a full and developed and caring life. Now, one of the things that Maslow's hierarchy of needs does not display and does not front and center very well is how certain points on that hierarchical scale can absolutely take over other things on the scale to the point of blindness and religious fanaticism. When it comes down to the three R's, your race, your region, your religion, resources, all of the rules tend to go out the window. And if you are a person that is, your central viewpoint is simply you and the scope of your understanding and your sympathy and empathy and compassion does not flow much beyond your personal boundaries and your personal family, then as long as your desires are met, then you are good. And when it comes to people on the left, we tend to care more about the greater whole. And this is disparagement between the two sides is now becoming clear and very obvious in our politics. Nobody has missed this. Now, from the right side, if you look at the messaging that they have been given ever since the Trump nominee originally ran in 2015 or whenever it was that he originally ran, all of the messaging has had a central viewpoint and a central focus. It is they. They are coming for your things. They are coming for your religion. They're coming for your churches. They're coming for your jobs. They're coming for your income. They're coming for your cities and your neighborhoods. And that is why we have hit this point where they are essentially willing to accept a sociopath who is going to meet those three criteria or any mix of those three criteria to the exclusion of everything else. The entire Fox network is simply a fear mechanism. Newsmax, no different. All of these places simply have one job: to continue to elicit fear, to continue to elicit the amygdala, because once the amygdala is engaged, all other thinking functions begin to go by the sidelines, and particularly our logic center. Now, we know from studies that a portion of our population has a larger than average amygdala. These would be people that would be incredibly susceptible to that type of programming, because once the amygdala is engaged, it gets hard to disengage. And the more that it's beat on, the more that it comes up. And that is what social media does so well, and what Fox understands so well: to pick a message of fear and continue to harp on it day after day after day, re engage the amygdala. And as soon as those paths are crossed, they will do anything to lessen the fear of them coming for their resources, coming for their religion, coming for their race. That is where so much of this stems from on their side. They are voting for their best interest, but they are convinced that their best interest only lies in those three parameters, because that is all the messaging machine has been telling them for years now. Now, going to open it up to discussion, see what everybody here thinks, and we'll invite some more people to the panel and see what they have to say on that particular subject. So, Smarshy, what do you have to say?
Just give me a second. I just have to grab some water.
Miss Radical, maybe you want to go while she's grabbing that?
Well, you and me had this talk earlier, and I couldn't agree more with pretty much everything you say, right? So it's going to be hard to get an opposing opinion on me with me on this issue.
Hang on, I'm just inviting a couple of people to see if they want to come up on the
Hi.
panel. So, Smarshy, whenever you're ready. Actually, I'm just gonna, just for 1 second, Callie, would you like to come up on the panel here?
I just sent her an invite.
Oh, okay, excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Go ahead, Smarshy.
Yeah, when it comes to the left and the right, there's, like you said, have strategic voting, and there's voting with your best interest, and then there's voting with humanity, right? I think the biggest thing I've seen on the left is everyone has humanitarian values. We have morality, integrity, and humanity, right? So we vote for the best interest of everybody, not just what's good for us, right? We don't do what's good for us. We do what's good for everybody around us, because we know if the wrong person gets into power, we're screwed, because then our very livelihood is affected, right? So that's what we see on the left. But on the right, they vote for their wallet. And I've said it time and time again, they'll always vote what's best for them, because of the fact that they think they know what's right. They think that they're doing the right thing for their family. When push comes to shove, and they vote for the wrong party, because they've been fed these messages subliminally and over and over and over again. Like I said, it takes 3 days to form a habit, 21 days to break it, right? So the thing is, they sit there and they're dead, they're unaligning set on what they're voting for, and this is what they'll get, this is what they'll get, this is how they'll do it. They'll make things um they'll make things better for us, and they'll do this and do that and da da da. They'll do all these wonderful things. When it comes down to it, a politician will always tell you what you want to hear, but 9 times out of 10 they don't actually do what they say they will,
Agreed.
and that's the problem.
Very
That's the
much so.
problem with the branch. And
Yep,
I've
very
always
much.
told people I don't vote because I have to vote. I vote because I need to vote. There's a need and a want. I want to vote the right party in, but I need to vote the one who aligns with my values, who aligns with my, aligns with everything that I believe in. Because if I vote the wrong person in, I know for the next however many terms they're in Canada, it's not going to do me any good, or my neighbor to the left or my neighbor to the right. It's not going to do you or Miss Radical any good, or Kelly or Treaty or Sparkle or Ben or anyone who is on the left. It's not going to be the right decision to vote with selfishness in my heart. I don't vote with anything but thinking, okay, what's the best for everybody? Not just me and my family, but what is right for everybody. And that's how I do it. And that's what I stand on. So again, with that being said, there's problems, and that tall girl said there's problems on both sides. Absolutely. There are people on the left that do vote for their best interests. I will admit, I'm not going to deny that. But 9 times out of 10, it's the right voting for, oh, he's going to axe the tax. Great. He's going to axe that tax, take the benefits away, put it under another tax, and you're still paying the carbon tax. You're just not getting the benefits from it. That's
Hmm.
what they're doing, right? It's a whole strategic plan that they have going on. And I can't stress this enough. We need to look at what the cons have done and what the liberal has done. We know that if we vote either liberal or con, we're gonna, it's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's what we're getting,
That's
right?
right.
If we could have an NDP government or a Green Party government, we'd be good. We'd have better representation, but we don't have a chance. So this is our option, liberal or conservative. I'll vote anything but conservative. I'll vote my left toe if I have to.
Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna get next order is gonna be Callie. I'll get you to chime in, and then Treaty, Sparkle, Shine, and Ben. We'll get everybody to chime in here on the topic. So, Callie, thanks for popping in. Welcome to the show.
Um, hello. I,
Hi.
oh, you can hear me?
You
I've
bet.
never I've never done a live before. So, thank you guys for welcoming me. I'm from California. I'm a fifth generation Californian. My heritage, just to give you guys some background about me. Like I said, fifth generation Californian. My great great grandfather came over from Denmark. So that's why I have a little snarky humor when they say Trump says he wants to buy Greenland, and I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, Iceland. Sorry. Apologies. I also do have Iroquois in me. My great 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 grandmother was from the Iroquois Nation. And I grew up in a very small town here in Mexico, or I mean in California, but it was all Mexicans. So I didn't realize I was white until I was probably 15, 16 years old. So don't laugh at me. I mean, I probably can cook a chili relleno better than you or anybody else. But anyway, that said, I'm
That's a
not
promise, then.
sorry. Again, I'm nervous because I've never been on live before. And I thank you and the Mrs. for inviting me. My perspective, what's going on in Canada, and I apologize profusely. I have not been as aware of world politics as I should have. And I think that is one of the biggest things that is the fault in a lot of Americans. We need to be more aware of what's going on, especially with our neighbors, with Canada and Mexico. It's important. So I guess my point in being here is just saying that understanding and there are bad things about the left, extreme left, and there are bad things about the extreme right. Trump and Musk, I do not understand what is going on there. And it's scaring me. As somebody who is I'm 55 years old, and I'm trying to deal now with my mother at 79. She just turned 79 yesterday. So I'm concerned about the world's perspective of America, and I'm concerned about Canada and the voting situation there. So maybe can you explain to me better what is happening there?
Well, I'll cover that ground quickly, and then we'll go to Treaty Six. We essentially anything that is happening in America, we will be about a year behind you. Now that has actually accelerated. I would say that we're only a couple of months behind, if not even down to a couple of weeks. That basically anything that's happening in the States is being reflected here, and what it really shows is that this entire outreach toward conservatism and authoritarianism, this is a global problem. This is not just a Canada or America problem. They understand that the amount of democratic nations is dropping, and if they get rid of Canada and America, the EU won't stand on its own for very long, and that's ultimately what the game plan is, I believe. So we'll just a quick note: tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. If you're just joining the conversation, welcome to Beaver Politics. I am your host, Mr. Radical. Treaty Six, what do you have to say?
Well, Conte, good evening. And I just want to clarify because I was late to the party. My apologies. We're talking about your opening was about how folks are voting on the right due to protect their existence, right? And the way they value themselves and see themselves. And this really reminded me of, so if that's right, it reminded me of there's a group here, a local group. I won't say who they are because it's, a small community. And
Yep.
I don't want anyone to tie it back to me. But um I these folks are quite extreme to the right, and they've gathered now and found each other on social media. And we've talked about this a lot as beavers, right? How the right has their community, and they gather and they know each other, and they have meals together and stuff. But this it started with a post I saw, or my Perry saw this post and made me aware of that the Minister of Indigenous Relations here got a letter from this local group, and he brought an esteemed chief with him to meet with them, and they wanted to talk about land back and other issues like that. And it turned out to be quite violent. And there's a lot more to this story that I won't tell all the details. But so this carried on for some bits, and we saw postings about this. And I got involved because I was like, why is they're taking this meeting of unfriendlies. So there was a posting that they're having a meeting, and I decided I'm going to go and see what these people are talking about. And I walk into this hall of like about 125 angry, extreme right people. I'm the only Indigenous person there. But what I saw there is exactly what you're saying. They are scared. They think their lifestyle and the way they live and identify is being threatened and attacked. And they're trying so hard to protect that, to the point of they were talking about land back, stating that First Nations want to get all this land back and make it a reserve land because then it'll be federal crown land, and Trudeau would control all the land, they said.
Kelly,
and
mute.
and, and they want to take over this county office and everything, kick out the Reeves is the conversation I walked in on, and then heard this land back discussion. And then they said, oh, and they're trying to make our kids feel guilty about the history. And I was like, how ironic that you think that we're coming after your land and your kids. But what I saw in that room was the fear of whatever they now told each other is happening. Fear of 5G towers. Like they're like, oh, it was like the conversations I heard in that room was Very interesting. So that's my contribution to the topic. And I got to tell you, I do a lot of public speaking. I never was so scared to speak up in a room in my life, but I did it. And I spoke to these people and I taught them some things. And it was a hell of a day.
Well, and I'm just going to jump in before Sparkle and Shine here quick. We do have to realize that for them, this is an existential threat. And one of the things that I keep harping on is that with the amygdala cannot differentiate between a real and a perceived. Oh, we have a special guest, guys. The Smushy Man has decided to join us as well. Um, the amygdala cannot tell between a real or a perceived threat. If I point a gun at you, or I stick my fingers under my jacket and give you the gun motion, I've got a gun, your brain isn't going to stop to differentiate. He's probably, BSing me. No, your brain is going to react the very same way. And that's the amount of fear and the fear level that they're actually at. They're at a visceral response level. So, Sparkle and Shine, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I just kind of add on what you were saying about the amygdala and everybody being, afraid and stuff like that. Um, I work in a store, and in my department, there's an emergency exit, and we're always told that you have to keep that completely clear. Everything has to be, tickety boo, and nothing can be in the checkered walkway area and stuff like that. And being a farming community, it always gets compared to cattle. If anything is in the way, they're not going to go. And when people get scared, they start thinking like cattle, and it's like that is such a parallel to why people, are especially on the extreme ends of things. It always comes down to fear. It always comes down to fear. You stop thinking logically when you're scared, and it just goes into reaction.
Very much. Yep. Very much so. And if I can point it out to everybody that's watching, a show that really displays when fear becomes its maximum, how far people will go and the different sects and groups that people will tend to fall into. The movie The Mist, based on the Stephen King book, displays this very, very well. To the point, if you crank fear up enough, it doesn't matter what the life preserver is, people will grasp onto it. And that is all that someone like Trump is that life preserver to people that think they're literally going under. Now, Ben, you haven't had a chance. Thanks for joining the show. Come on up and what do you have to say?
I'm not really sure. What's our main topic of today?
Well, we're talking for the most part that I've stated the fact that I believe that when you're talking about Republicans and conservatives, when they are voting for the likes of Trump and Pierre Poilievre, they are actually voting for their best interest because their fear levels have been raised to the point where they believe they are under an actual existential threat.
Yep. Okay, I'm with you. Uh, yeah, no, I've got a video where I kind of talk about common grievance and where we have to kind of meet them where they're at with, because stuff sucks. Life sucks right now, and that's the tool that fascism uses to take hold. They use a collapse of capitalism to force people into hard situations. I mean, that's what Weimar Germany was. The Germans were in hard situations, and then they give another to blame and to demonize, and then that just grows and grows, and people stop thinking. They just keep blaming, and we need to reach across and be like, hey, let's stop doing what the oligarchs are making us do, because we can explain the whole gender thing later. you know, um, as long
Yep.
as you can meet me with everyone's human and everyone deserves human rights, so that we can prevent these J side from happening.
But that's Ben. I'll throw this at you here. That is where I believe that fundamentally we on the left are struggling to realize that these people aren't always brainwashed. That a lot of these people absolutely and fundamentally agree with the ideology that is being presented, as ugly as it is. If you look back at what happened with the Gestapo crowd, we had people that went to their deathbeds in their 80s and their 90s still espousing that particular ideology, right? So while I agree there is some reaching across the aisle that has to occur, the fact of the matter is we're not going to get through to all of them.
We got to save who we can. And there's
Yeah.
always going to be a certain percentage that, yeah, no, they're totally sold on the idea, right? Obviously, there's a certain percentage, but there's the active percentage of the crowd, and then there's the people who tend to follow, and it's the people that tend to follow that we need to that we need to reach. The people who aren't okay with genocide, that aren't okay with tech bros running the world, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Smarshy, you had your fingers
Yeah.
up there. We'll just,
And I agree.
the way the panel is laid out today, we'll just, women against, we'll get to you next, and we'll just
Oh, women against
cascade down.
hasn't had a chance to talk, so I'll let her talk and then I'll rebut what Ben
Sounds
was
good.
saying.
Women against, welcome to the show.
Hello, can you hear me?
You betcha.
Hi, thanks for this. Sorry, I came in late because I'm just scarfing down some dinner, got some company coming later. But I guess the couple of things that I've seen or comments, contributions here. One is the United States, unfortunately, is lost. They have lost their democracy at this point from everything I'm reading, and I read a lot. They've basically their information has been stolen, their money's been stolen. They walked into this with their votes, but the biggest part of it was the people who didn't vote, the 90 million who never voted.
Yep.
And that's a group that we don't, or I don't feel that we focus on enough. For myself, I'm pretty hardcore anti-conservative, like, well, actually very hardcore. So I'm, for myself, I'm not interested, and I appreciate people who are, but for myself, I have no interest in trying to convince a conservative to change their views. I talk to people all the time in my private life, like constantly, even strangers that I kind of meet in my day-to-day work or volunteering, about politics at a way, sort of at their level, if you will. And
Hmm.
I think there are a lot of people who talk, like the gentleman before, I think Ben just said, they're not actually conservative, but they're going to vote conservative because that's sort of the trend right now. Like, hate Trudeau, Canada's bad, blah, blah, blah. And then when you actually have a chance to talk to them, they will change their mind if you talk to them with facts. So those are more the people I'm interested in. And then the bigger group that I'm interested in are the people who don't vote, because those are actually the ones that are going to that got Trump as government and that are going to get us a Polyev government. They're the ones actually that scare me the most. Because I think a lot of these Trumper conservative types, Trump appealed to them because they're racist, they're sexist, they like that, they want to hurt people. Aside from maybe the ones who didn't understand what was going to happen to them, and I think there's a lot of that in Canada as well. They like the pain, but that's not the majority of people. I think the majority of these conservative types are just the followers, I believe, or people who think it's still the old style PC party. They haven't quite gotten with the Polyev times. So for me, what
Yep.
I'm interested in is really pushing my party, which is the Liberal Party, liberal views, federally and NDP provincially, and just constantly outreaching to that and trying to get people who normally would not engage, because we're going to lose this in Canada, not to the conservatives, because there's not enough of them. We're going to lose it to the people who don't vote. And that's how by default we'll end up with one of these shitty right-wing fucked
Yep.
up governments that's going to destroy us, excuse my language. So from what I can, the people I follow in the US, they're already saying, the more moderates and the lefties, that, well, as much as they have lefties there, that they've lost this fight. And really it's going to be up to the streets, people in the streets, to see if they can motivate any change. But he's got this lock, stock and barrel, and this cannot happen in Canada. So that's where I focus. Again, that's just me, but I've got a lot of energy and time for this. And dedication, but I'm not interested in conservatives, like diehard conservatives. I'm not going to change their mind, and I don't want to talk to them. I think they feel, like people said earlier, they feel a sense of community. I think it feeds some of their their racism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia. But I think for a lot of them, it's an easy answer and it's a sense of community. But they're not the majority of Canadians, at least not where I am. And so my focus is on the middle, those that don't vote. And let's get them out, and let's not be looking in whatever it is, 3 months, 6 months between now and October, whenever we have our election. I would hate for Canada to be doing the same thing that the United States is doing, which is looking back and going, what the fuck did we do here? And we're in it now. How do we get out of this? We can avoid this. Canada can avoid this, and let's please do that. We have a better outcome. We can have a much more positive outcome for our democracy, our economy, our civil society, our civil rights, human rights. Let's not do what the United States did and look back and regret it. And thanks, Radical, for what you do here. Much appreciated. And I'm gonna just sign out of the box because I've got to get ready for my company. But hello, everyone, and thank you for your comments. I learn a lot from you.
Thanks for chiming in, Women Against.
Women Against Poly, you're amazing, as always.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Okay, so to put some people's mind at ease, the UCP government was fined $13,500 for having an out-of-country political contribution come into play. Okay? Yes, the UCP, they are a racist, fascist, homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic bunch of asshats. I will say that with my feet 10 toes down. I don't care. The thing is, we are not America. We are Canada. We are supposed to be better than this. We need to learn what not to do from the mistakes of um our brethren and sister down in the South. We need to do that. I am not saying that people don't have a right to feel how they feel, but if you have five racists at a table and one non-racist person and they're not calling that out, it's called guilty by association. That is what it is. There is racism in Canada. Don't tell me there isn't, because there is.
Yeah.
Again,
Oh, yeah.
no, I was just answering a comment. There's nothing racist here.
Yep.
Okay, again, I didn't say this calling out anybody. I just said if there are five racists at the table and one happens to be not saying anything and is actually an anti-racist, when you sit there and say nothing, you're complacent, you are guilty by association, so guess what? You're called a racist. That is what it is.
I
Anywho,
agree.
Mrs., thanks for coming in. Hey, we haven't seen you in a while, girl.
No, I haven't. I've been looking forward to making a special effort to drop into all the Beaver programs. I'm, I don't function well at night, let's say. And so I watch them on YouTube. And so, but I am here tonight. And so I thought I would pop into this very interesting conversation and give my 2 cents for whatever it's worth here. So.
Thank you. Callie, we haven't heard from you in a while. What do you have to say?
She's got her mute on.
Callie, are you there? You have to turn your mute off.
whoever muted her has to turn her mute on.
Hang on here.
Oh, there it's off.
Callie.
Hello, cheers, everyone. So regarding the LGBTQ situation, I grew up in a very straight family with my mom and my ex-dead stepfather, which is a good thing. He's dead. He was a bad person. But anyway, that aside, my real dad, he taught me a lot about being acceptant of the LGBTQ community. Apologies. And it's amazing how wonderful they are. And the fact that people are trying to put them down for what they're doing, they're just being themselves. And I grew up, so when I was in my early 20s, I'm 55. So when I was in my early 20s, I worked with my father doing sound jobs 4 gay square dance conventions. And it was such a wonderful experience because I got to know the community. I got to understand what they were about. So,
But
when
Callie,
people,
if I could interrupt for just half a sec, isn't
sure,
that word experience really the key?
it is, yes, huge, definitely. My experience. So I'm not sure why you pointed that out.
I'm pointing it out to the audience that ability to be in the community and understand what the
Okay.
community's perspective is. That's where real knowledge comes from. Empathy is a terrific thing. However, when you actually get invested in different communities and you actually have personal experience with these people, I think it takes that extra step above and beyond, just like you're pointing out, Callie.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. And that was something I had noticed in a dialogue I tried to have with somebody on another channel. I wasn't live; it was just a text going back and forth. But it was interesting because there is a difference between sympathy. There's a difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is just you feel the pain, you feel, but empathy is when you've actually gone through it. So that is one thing I want to bring up to a lot of people that say, I feel the empathy. Well, have you gone through it? Me, as a person, having gone through the traumas that I've gone through, gives me a little bit more experience or understanding of pain as opposed to somebody who hasn't. I don't know if that makes sense.
Very, very much so, because so much of what we're dealing with here, uh, and we'll get to Miss Radical next, and so much of what we're dealing with here is people that have rarely left their scope of influence for
Yeah.
most of their lives. They know their 20, 30 people, they know their 30, 40 buildings, and that's as far as it goes. Miss Radical, hey, lovely.
Yeah.
Hi. I just wanted to chime in a little bit on what Smarshy was touching on about sitting at the table with a racist. And I don't disagree with a lot of what she had to say, but I think sometimes there's caveats to this conversation. And so when I say caveats, I'm thinking about Schindler's List. And I don't know if we've all heard the story of Schindler's List,
Yes.
but he was a very rich German that wasn't so affected by the war until he saw the atrocities of it, and then
Right.
kind of swung over to the other side and saved a lot of people. Now, I don't like how he got there by any means, but I do like that he was kind of flexible enough to change his opinion and kind of come up with another plan. And I think about also that Uncle Tom piece because I've heard that many times in history being used, but I don't know that we all got the Uncle Tom part right in the story that he negotiated and tried to help a lot of people. He didn't
Oh,
use his
absolutely.
favor to hurt people. So sometimes, maybe the point I'm getting to is sometimes people do things differently to get to the same end, maybe is
Right.
what I'm trying to articulate.
And I'm not.
Smarshy, I'll have you throw in quick there, and then I'll go to Sparkle, Shine, and then Ben next, please.
See, this is why I love Miss Radical so much, is because she challenges my thinking all the time. We had a conversation earlier about something that had happened to me and a bunch of my indigenous relatives. Now, I may not agree with the way it was written, but I understood where the message was coming from. And for the life of me, you have done nothing wrong. You have been nothing but supportive, and I thank you. Because, yes, while I'm saying that everybody's sitting with the racist, the analogy of like you have five people at a table, one of them's not racist, they don't say anything. What I mean by that is if you're not actively standing up and saying something at the time, or you're not saying it in like if you want to take it aside, that's fine. That's totally up to you. What I was saying is if you're actively okay with people saying that and you're not calling it out, that's when you become deemed a racist. It doesn't matter. It could be a person of color that sits there and is uncomfortable to say something to his homies or his friends or whatever he calls them, right? He could be uncomfortable saying something, but you're still letting that lateral damage to happen. And you're still following the white supremacist tactics that you have seen around the world. That's what I meant. I didn't mean that, I was right and you were wrong. I was just saying, like, at that moment, if you're not actively comfortable calling it out and you let it slide, that's when you become deemed a racist or causing lateral damage to your own group. That's all I was saying. So
Marsh,
thank you for challenging me.
Marsh, I love your heart, and I wouldn't think that. It was just an opportunity to introduce a different concept, but I know that you wouldn't think that. I know that. So
Absolutely. And I love that you challenged me. It's fun.
Sparkle and Shine, you're next.
I kind of wanted to touch back on, it was mentioned a little bit earlier about how there is so much othering that's going on where they, and the one that really, stands out to me is when PP would stand up and tell everybody, it doesn't matter who I'm running against in the election, they are all Justin Trudeau. It's like, yeah, he's saying the quiet parts out loud, and nobody's, batting an eye about it. And it's kind of scary times. Scary times.
But it shows. I've always said that our adaptability is one of our best and one of our worst traits, because we can literally get used to anything good and anything bad. However, the way that we operate, that amount, like a drug addiction or alcohol addiction, always continues to climb. So the amount of crap that they have to throw out has to continuously increase to meet the demand, if I, may phrase it that way. So, Ben, what do you have to say there?
Sorry, you got me my mouthful. I don't know that I have yeah, there are some people we can't reach, but there's I think the point of reaching the apathetic persons and trying to get people to realize what kind of effect it's going to have on their lives is really important. To make it personal for them, to make them understand, like, look what's happening, and then look what influences are happening here, because it's taking hold. You have Pierre referencing like Sir John A, and that's super red flag for me. Like, I didn't really know much about Sir John A. I looked it up and I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, no.
So and kind of explaining, like, we don't get a place in the oligarchy. Like, none of us are in that special club. Like, George Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it. But
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're not in it, but that's exactly why we are looking to get together where we can, so us peasants and serfs can get together and discuss what's going on. But it's also why, I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing that the damn government in the U.S. has managed to agree on was to get rid of TikTok.
well, now it's kind of fallen, and it's being run by what, like half a dozen teenagers or something. Like, I I I don't understand how what has happened is being allowed to occur. And I personally hold Biden and the Democrats just as much responsible, because the law is very clear. And there were Republican judges shouting for Midas touch constantly. 14.3. It's clear as day. And yet it has been allowed to happen. I don't understand.
Yeah, to be a fly on the wall in a few of those meetings, hey?
Oh yeah, or be invisible.
Alrighty, folks, it's 6:45, so... oh, Mrs., I'll get you in there, and then we'll go on to the next topic here.
Okay, thank you. Ben, I have to agree with what you said, and it reminds me of a motto that I go by called that the political is personal. And a lot of people have a disconnect around that. And I think it's a way to start a conversation that isn't like that would be too much in people's faces, too argumentative. And one of the points that I wanted to talk about when it was earlier in the conversation about conservatism in general. I'm a social worker. My background's in social work. So the social dynamics of health are very, very important. And I think a lot of people don't make that connection. When we talk about politics and we talk about social programs, that's improving the social dynamics of health. And I see conservatism as a disease on society's well-being and society's health. And I used to think that conservatism itself was the mental illness, but I'm now understanding that conservatism is a choice. That yes, the amygdala gland is where it all begins, and they're firing off fear signals, but we all have these things called frontal lobes. And people make a choice about whether or not they're going to use them to do a critical analysis of the situation. So I just wanted to throw a couple of thoughts out there to chew on about that. And I think a way to get the middle people, to get the people who are apathetic, to get them more involved is to have that conversation from the political as personal point of view. So that's all. I wanted to just contribute a couple of thoughts, and who knows, maybe they carry on to different conversations. So thank you for letting me up in the box. I'm going to go keep you on and listen. And by the way, great job on having a live where everybody gets to have their piece without somebody else screaming and yelling over them. This has been really great to listen to. And I will bow out and continue listening, but I'm going to go have supper. And thank you, Ben. And this is Radical.
Thanks, Mrs.
All
Always
right.
appreciate having you on, girl.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Alrighty, it is 6:45, so it is now. I gotta ask, Miss Radical, I have my face frozen like this, but how do I get me back on?
Okay.
You're frozen?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's frozen on my end.
yeah,
Touch your face, touch your picture and kind of move it back and forth and see if it's nothing.
no, doesn't want to go. Alright, you get that look from me for the rest of it.
You're
Deal with it.
The
frozen,
side eye,
Radical.
the side eye.
Alrighty, so a little bit of upkeep if you're just joining us. This is Beaver Politics. The show is Radicalized. I am your host, Mr. Radical. Welcome, everybody that's just joining the show. Beaver Politics is by the peoples, for the peoples, and we are just switching topics here at the halfway mark. So the subject that I wanted to touch on, oh, don't forget, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. But the subject I think I wanted to hit on as well tonight is the influence that religion and politics and the mix that it is happening. Now, we all know that we've seen legislation that just came through that Trump is enacting some sort of equality task force for Christianity. And I mean, anybody looking back at that situation with even half an ounce of criticism could see that, America is still predominantly a Christian nation, and yet the fear levels around what's happening with Christianity are, again, at a level that's existential for them. They honestly believe that that's coming to a head, that they are about to lose their religion. But the thing that I really wanted to hit on is not only from a theological basis is religion siding with the conservative agenda. This is about financial survival. The religious community knows fundamentally that the religious people on the conservative side are going to back them basically no matter what the situation is. I mean, we've had literal grapists come out in their congregation, and the congregation will revolve around that poor rapist and his mistake and leave the victim, which is usually a child, in the dirt. So we know that they're susceptible to that type of ideology, but at the end of the day, what I think it's really about is the finances. Uh, in 2020, the Catholic Church itself here in Canada, just the Catholic Church, we could only trace now, and I'm saying only facetiously, $200 million in income, but that is only what we could actually find, because the church does not have any requirement to source or itemize any of their income streams. So if you're starting to look at the massive amount of money that just the Catholic Church is generating, Smarshy, we'll get to you after the diatribe here. If we look at the amount of dollars that just the Catholic Church is generating and shipping out of the country, we're talking about $4.5 billion of property and ownership that they have in Canada alone. Remember, these numbers are Canada alone. We are talking about billions and billions of dollars that the church continues to siphon out of North America with almost no questions asked and no taxes placed on them. Anybody that has entered a church in the last 10 years know that they are absolutely preaching from the pulpit and they are being political from the pulpit. And I believe that their bottom line finances are absolutely one of the main reasons. This is not a theological thing for them. For the most brainwashed, maybe so. But for the heads of the church, the people that are actually in charge on the conservative and Republican side, at the end of the day, for them, this is about finances. And too many people on the liberal side are finally starting to say, tax the churches. Alrighty, we'll move on to our panel. Smarshy, go ahead.
You know, I love religion. But anywho, that's not the point. The point is, the reason the oh my God, I cannot talk today. The reason why they're still able to get away with what they're getting away with is because they have the documents of what they're spending. They just don't have it where people can see it. So if they don't have documents to prove, and they can get an exemption.
Sorry, I missed the last little bit there, Smarshy. Happy, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, buddy, I'm pretty good. How are you?
Not bad for a working man on a Saturday.
I heard that. Yeah, yeah. Did you work? I had Saturday off this week. I work next Saturday. So.
I'm back to the routine tomorrow night.
All right.
So what do you have to say, Happy? What do you think?
Religion interference with politics. Yeah, I think it's a control mechanism, and I think that they're more worried about maintaining the control than they're worried about creating new revenue streams. So I think like instilling people within the party is probably in all parties is probably a big priority for any kind of religious like lobbyist group. As I think that Canadians are kind of starting to gravitate away from religion as far as being like adherent to the rules and stuff like that.
Well, you wouldn't know it, but in America right now, almost 40% of the population is either not religious or does not identify with any particular religion. However, that is absolutely the crisis that's fueling, obviously, the religious community on this side. But at the end of the day, their numbers are still majority.
Yeah, but they're quickly dwindling, and I think there's been like, I can't find I. It's not that I can't find it; it's just I don't have it on hand. But I read an article not too long ago, and then kind of followed it up with a little bit of a rabbit hole, and how religion, although has some spikes, is going to pretty much be non-existent. Before our lifetimes are over, as far as controlling anything of significance in the world. So I think like there's going to be a major tipping point in the near future where financially they'll be crippled by all the lawsuits they have to pay out, or when their power starts getting stripped, little by little. Because remember, like a couple of centuries ago, they're the ones writing the laws for the entire world, not just like one country. But the Vatican would summon people to their presence so that they could make sure that they were writing the laws, right?
Yeah, and that mix of religion, and that's what made America stand out, obviously, so much in its an original form, I guess you would say. That freedom from religion, and that religion couldn't be intertwined into the politics or the schools. That was a standout thing for its time. There was really nobody, none of the countries of significance anyway on the planet that were actually offering that. But what we're obviously seeing now is the blatant mix of the two. They are unabashedly picking sides. And I often said, they have CPAC, which is basically a religious political institution. Why
Mhm.
don't we have an APAC where we have atheists having a political institution?
Well, and I just want, can you guys hear me better? I just put my other headset in. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we can hear you.
Okay, so like I was saying before, I read an article. They're now trying to tax the um the parking lot of the church while not taxing the church.
Right?
Because someone mentioned using a parking lot to set up housing encampments for the unhoused. Well, now they want to tax that. And I think that's really strange that they want to tax that now. But for years and years and years, and I did a deep rabbit hole dive, and it sickens me. In North America alone, they make $5.3 trillion just
Hmm.
on offerings alone. Everyone's like, that's not right. That can't be right. I'm like, I'm looking at a government website right now that states of in North America alone, they are being they're being a fiscal amount of $5.3 trillion tax free.
Look
Yep.
at how
Why
much
can
money Joel Osteen spends every year.
oh
Like,
exactly.
he bought the ex Houston Rockets stadium so that he could hold
Oh
his
my gosh.
sermons every weekend. Um,
That's gross.
this guy has planes, not just one private jet. He's got planes. These people are they're not doing God's work.
No, and that's the thing. There was someone that said, um, it had something to do with God. God is an all-loving person. My question is, and I will say this in TikTok-friendly terms because I haven't been doing it lately, and it seems to get me taken down. So I will say, if God is so all-loving, why is He letting the things that happen to Him or happen to Jesus, His only Son, His only loving Son, allow Him to get persecuted by Romans,
Yeah,
in a sense?
that's the suffering, right? Like
Right,
I
but
mean,
that's the
Miss
something.
Radical
But
has
why
something
is
to say,
it?
so I don't want to say
Why is
anything. But
Okay.
that's
Hey
fables.
guys, I'm just gonna interrupt here. Ben, I'm gonna get you in on the conversation here, and we'll try and keep it on topic here. But it's the blatant mix right now of money and religion and politics.
there should be no tithing in religion? That's what it says in the Bible.
No, they said they're
I'm
allowed
looking.
to do 10%, but yeah, like politics. So, like they get sweetheart deals. Like there's a church in downtown Ottawa that is right beside City Hall. This property should be yielding like $40,000 a month or whatever, and they have a lease where it's $1 a month, right, for their rental property in the most prime location, and it's the biggest, and it's another form of like, I don't know, fuck,
But
favoritism.
we have to understand that the church is no different than McDonald's on a base level. When you ask the original founder of McDonald's what his business was not hamburgers. His business was real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And the church is the largest landholder on the planet. And this is one of the
As it should
fundamental
be.
issues that I have with the entire religious concept, because basically all I see them doing is hoarding wealth. And, even from just a personal religious, historical background, as far as I'm concerned, the doors to the Vatican archives should be opened and every single item in there should be pulled out for inspection and returned to its place of origin.
So Stephen Harper actually was the one that stopped taxing the church. Within about 6 months of Stephen Harper taxing or letting the taxes up on the church, CPAC was created. And we
CPAC is, I can't remember.
um
It's the CPAC is the one that runs all of those big conservative conventions for the Republicans, and the Republicans join
Oh,
in, but they're literally the same damn thing. So Ben is just signaling that he's ready to go here. So Ben, go ahead and jump on. What do you have to say?
Yeah, sorry, I was in a loud environment there. Um, yeah, in terms of like how the church has affected our politics has been a little crazy. It's always been kind of a tool of the patriarchy to keep itself in in control, to keep men in control instead of uh, going towards my understanding the more indigenous route of matriarchy and following the elder mothers. Um, but yeah, taxing the church is wonderful. It's our history in Canada with the churches is absolutely horrific because it was used as a tool of political control. It was used as a tool to genocide
I'm sorry.
gay side, and it to a point that like it I the 30s Germans or 20s Germans came and studied our systems, our reserve systems, and our school systems, and they took notes. Right? So like we have a problem here, and the way religion and genocide and all of these things are tied in, and it's the religion, it's not the actual teachings of Christ, because when you look at what Christ said, he's like a switch fashioning to hit the money changers and go feed the poor and heal the sick type people. He's a leftist, but they've got this perverted view, and it's taken hold, and these it's false prophets like.
And it's not just religion. It's also like the whole mantra of the United States too. Give me, you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry, and you're
Yep.
desperate or despondent. I can't remember. Disparate few. And like that's the foundation of what the United States was built around. That's their whole moral uh, umbrella. Stems from that one line. And we're not seeing that represented down there through legislation. And now we can see like two and two, right? Like now we can see there's no religious intervention speaking truth to power, saying what's going on is wrong and immoral. So we know that they're in conjunction with each other. By with the silence, we see that they're condoning, because prior to that they were quite vocal. And we know not to trust them. we can start whittling away at their influence by educating youth, because the antidote to ignorance is always education, and I think that's rhymes true with religion as well. So,
Angela, thanks, Happy. Angela, we'll get you on next, and then we'll go to T Jack after that.
Can I just quickly respond there to that? I, one of the hopeful things that I heard was that this is the extinction burst. This is the last desperate gasp of these ideologies before they poof.
the death knells.
Well, there's nothing, I mean, let's face it, there's nothing more dangerous than a cornered animal, and that's exactly how they feel, is like a cornered animal, and that's exactly the backlash that we're getting. Angela, are you there? What do you have to say?
Hello. Hi,
Hello,
sorry.
Angela. Welcome to the show.
First of all, I just got in now, so I'm assuming you're speaking about, what is the topic exactly you're speaking about right now?
We are talking about the influence of religion and the mix into with politics and business.
Yeah, so it's exactly what we're seeing in the United States. And
Exactly.
it's very scary. It's extremely scary because this project 2025 is unfolding right in front of us. And, well, we're just seeing it, but we can see the effects of what's happening in the United States. And that was the whole idea behind Trump. And a lot of people made the assumption that Trump didn't support it. A lot of his voters stated that. But the truth and reality is he did support it. He supported it, he was behind it. And
Absolutely.
that's so scary. So scary because right now, did you hear about the Kennedy Center? He just fired everyone and made himself the chairman.
Yep. Yeah. And we're every day we're gonna hear something like this. I mean, it's no different than what we're hearing with Danielle Smith.
Yeah, exactly.
The links between the church here in Canada and the politics is a little bit murkier than it is out in the States, because the States has literally just become blatant about the whole situation. T-Jack, I'm guessing you had to leave there. Sorry you had to go there, bud. Smarshy, what do you have to say?
That's a lot of things I have to say. But I won't take up most of the time because I know it's a long fucking diatribe and I don't want to do that. So the thing I want to say is we are not for sale. We don't need the Doge in Canada. We don't need Trump to save us because Trump can't save his own country, let alone us. The only reason he wants Canada is for the minerals and the resources that we have, and then he's going to just deplete us dry. So how about we not talk about that when we're talking about strengthening our economy and strengthening everything with Canada? That's what I think we need to focus as a whole. God forbid I, think of other people because God forbid that's a fucking atrocity in its own. Anyhow, it is imperative that we think and logically and critically think that if you are not for this country, what are you doing here? If you are wanting Pierre to save us, it's not going to happen. Pierre will sell us out like that. It's not going to happen. That man doesn't like us. That man doesn't want us here. That man wants to go back to Johnny McDonald. Wow. I am so
I'm
sorry.
scared to put up my
Uh,
hand like this and
Oh, happy,
right?
guys.
Happy,
he's
Guys,
happy.
he's
I want to
he's
throw
doing
this
the
out
Roman
there. I
salute.
really appreciate everybody doing that, the hands up thing. We want to make this an open format where everybody feels like they have been heard. So happy, I actually do appreciate it. I know it's a little bit grade school, but just put up
I'm
with it,
talking
my
about
man.
Elon
Thanks.
Musk's Roman salute, like with my hand up. Am I? Sorry.
This is why I've been doing this or
Yeah.
this.
No,
Because you can't
thank.
get away with me get in trouble for that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Happy, go ahead.
I can't remember what I was going to say. I was laughing too hard. I don't know. I
Miss
think I think
Radical.
I think attacking misinformation is probably the best way that we can really um, attenuate that impact, right? Like, and just not allow it to saturate. Um, and I think we're going to start seeing some landmark lawsuits coming out again. Like we've seen some big ones already. I think those will be followed up. I think in Canada, we need to focus on allowing that kind of like secular kind of intervention, separating religion from government and policing. Of course, it goes right along with that. And if we can have those landmark lawsuits set precedent, I think we can then whittle away at the influence that both those institutions hold over Canadians and over the government as a whole, because they do have like a voting bloc. And right now we're on that precipice. We see the little bit of chink in their armor and the doubt that that's causing. And that's why we hear, like you said, those death knells in the far right screaming at the top of their lungs that they're being oppressed. And it's not that they're being oppressed, it's that they're being called to account for their support of those hypocrisies.
Yeah, and I will say
Absolutely.
that I'm just going to throw this out there. One of the things that I've been saying that the timing of what's happening right now is not coincidence. The wealth gap is only widening, and people are becoming hyper aware. They also know that our birth rate is falling below even status situations. So birth rate is a problem. All of these things are kind of coming up and presenting themselves sort of all of a sudden in the last decade. And I've said in more than a few of my TikToks that the right and conservatives, and particularly the religious, they are getting screwed out of existence, and they know it. Miss Radical?
The lion face makes her look like she's sleeping because her eyes are closed.
Right?
We do. I keep having to make
Because
him
when
really
you're
big.
looking down at the comments, you're not looking up at your camera lens, which is like up at the top of your phone. So it always looks like you're like, because like people always accuse me of being high, right? Because I'm always looking at the comment. A little mix of column A and column B, but like at any rate, that's irrelevant. But like I found, like if I'm
Just
looking
own
down
it,
at the
Happy.
comments, like but if I look up at the camera lens, like my eyes, like all of a sudden, oh well, they're open now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like
I get that.
No need
I
to
get
excuse Trudeau treats.
Trudeau,
They're the
the greatest prime
best.
minister in the
That's all.
history of Canada.
Yeah, no, but if the wind goes right, it's a Trudeau problem. If the wind goes left, it's a Trudeau problem. Everything is Trudeau problem.
Oh, I
You
busted
want to have
my
an
shin
example of
the other
what?
day on something, and all I could do is blame Trudeau.
It's awesome though, like they have no identity now because like
Well, one of the,
ooh, no carbon tax, no Trudeau, what are you gonna
I'm
do?
sur-
Like they had to hide and strategize because they have nothing.
I'm
now they
really
have
sur-
a fuck Carney stuff going on. I'm like, seriously, get an identity that isn't political. I am a socialist with anarchist views. If you want me to explain that, I will explain that on another day.
Now, I want to pose this to the group. One of the things that I've said on more than a few occasions is that a lot of these ideologies, like religion, like politics, these are tools for people that I believe struggle to actually uh, formulate their own identity. So they have to use these external things and these external systems to kind of tell them who they are. But once you accept these ideologies, then you have to sort through the entire list of what that ideology, such as Christianity or being a Muslim or being a Jew, actually presents in its entirety.
Mm,
Who wants to take that?
I'll take it. I don't care. I have
Do
enough
it.
energy to do this. Okay. I just ate peanut butter, so bear with me. I may not make a lot of sense. My political party is not all of who I am. Okay. Yes, I fight with the political party that's best suited for our country. That is what I do. I identify and I align with the politics that I see, but it's not my end all be all, if that makes sense. Happy's looking at me like kind of funny looking, like I said something wrong. Oh, Happy, just tell me I'm doing something wrong. Come on.
No, no, no. Far be it from me to interject here and say that you're doing anything wrong. I just feel as though you should be a little bit more selfish when talking about what you're looking for in your politicians. And I think that when you say I'm looking for what's best for Canadians, I think that does a disservice because really what we're looking for when we're having elections is what people individually think is important. So like when you say that you're speaking for Canadians, you should be speaking for yourself. And in doing so, what you are adding to the pot of stew that we're all trying to cook together is the values, right? That you think
Right.
Canadian, that's what I mean. And so by
But
saying like I'm putting forward I'm going to vote for the person that best represents my values, and then that translates later on to what's best for Canada. I think
okay.
because your
So
values, to
let
me,
me
like
interject. Let me interject with you, Happy, okay? I do vote with my values, okay? My values have to align with my political party, all right? But the thing is, with my values, I find most Canadians have similar values to me. So when I say I vote for Canadians, I'm also including myself in that demographic. I'm a Canadian, and that's who I vote for. So I also throw myself in that loop.
Okay, Ben will get you to chime in here.
Uh, so I think it's really important to, like Happy was saying there, push our leaders to meet our needs more. I don't think the Conservatives should run Pierre in this next election. It doesn't serve them. It serves the left better to have him running. But like, if we're going to have an honest election, we shouldn't have any oligarch agent involved in anywhere. Our Elections Canada needs to step up and say, yeah, no, you're not allowed. You don't meet the qualifications of not being sold out, right?
Absolutely.
So
I
we'll
don't think
go Miss
I,
Radical next, and then Angry Liberal, and then we'll do Angela.
I sit kind of in a very unique position in that when I first went to vote and it was a provincial election, I got I got to check off my own name because I wasn't satisfied with what I saw there and decided that $100 and 10 signatures wasn't too hard to get. And I actually got involved in the process, and was invited out to debate and was told that if I had been part of one of the big three that I would be a favorable choice. But that kind of defeated the point that if I had been part of the three, I wouldn't have been able to say what I needed. And I think it's important that we pull parties like the NDP back to the left where the roots were, and to communicate with your politicians directly, even if they're not your party, if they're your MLA, your MP, like put the demands on them. Say you're there to represent me. I don't care if I'm, not in your party. You're representing me too.
Yep. Miss Radical, we'll get you
I'm
next,
just
and then
gonna,
Angry.
I'm just here to amplify what Ben said. I totally agree. He nailed it.
Hmm.
I completely disagree.
Uh-oh.
We shouldn't be pushing the NDP to the left. We should be waking the NDP up to reality that their current strategy is not working. The method that you guys are employing, trying to create this movement, is in isolation of anybody who disagrees with you. This is why you're losing support. When will you guys
I
wake up?
disagree.
Well, then you're not living in reality. Look at the polls. You're losing. You're going to lose
Sweetheart.
Ontario.
I'm in
Okay.
Alberta.
How many
Okay,
Ontario
guys, hang on.
leaderships?
Hang on. As moderator, I'm going to interrupt one at a time, please. Now, Angry, in a lot of senses, I do agree with what you're saying, because what the strategies that the left have been employing up to this point have not been particularly effective. Angela, we'll go to you, and what do you have to say?
What the what? I was in the middle of saying something.
Okay, go ahead and finish your thought, Angry.
Okay, so you guys are always ignoring Toronto. Toronto is what you need to win elections. No one wants to even acknowledge that other people exist. Toronto exists, and it's got a large population and a lot of ridings. So if you
Literally
want to win
nobody ignores
elections,
Toronto.
you're going to have to appeal
Nobody
to the
knows
people in
Toronto.
Toronto. And you
Literally
guys aren't doing
nobody
that at
ignores
all.
Toronto. Nobody in this country ignores Toronto. Toronto
No,
is like that
you guys do.
ingrown hair that you can't
You guys do.
ignore. It's
You guys
it's
do.
it's
You
it's
guys
just
do.
always
You guys do.
vibrating. You know, like Toronto, we all acknowledge it, and just like
No,
Vancouver
no,
and these
never
other
once.
places.
Never once
Hey,
does
Angry
Toronto come up
liberal.
in your life.
Okay.
Why would it come up live? We've actually talked about Toronto several times actually, in my personal lives, and we've talked about urban planning and how that contributes to disenfranchisement and how that contributes to people living in poverty and destitution, and it builds resentment towards ruling parties, and how it foments like a less willingness to participate in democratic discourse and civic responsibility. So yeah, we've talked about it plenty of times on my lives. I'm sorry you had to leave,
No, well,
Johnny.
I want this. Hello, Infamous. I'll let you jump in just a second here. But I just want to do some housekeeping notes here. We're getting close to the end of the show here. Don't forget, tapping is clapping. Welcome to Beaver Politics. We are for the people, by the peoples. Sharing is caring. I want to welcome and thank all of our guests and our panel members. But I want to get a little bit more back on topic here. And the original topic is how intertwined we were. And Angry Liberal, I wanted you to just settle down for a minute and wait for a response. And so I'm sorry that you left. But the original topic right now was the inclusion of church and politics and big business, and where is this all heading, particularly with our elections coming up sometime probably in the next 6 months here in Canada. So Angela will, Angela will have you go, and then Infamous will have you chime in right after.
Okay, we saw the influence it had. Remember when February, when we had the occupancy? That was basically part of the reason, right? We all know that, right? And it was meant to overturn our government, which is a disgrace and a disaster. Because we were going in the right direction during the pandemic. We were actually healing. This came in. And so when was Pierre elected as a leader? Do you remember when he was elected as a leader?
18, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was 18. Yep.
18, 19.
Was
Because
it
it wasn't
18?
at the last election, which was 16, right? After 21, before 21, it was. When was
Was it
it?
21?
18.
Did you notice that one of those trucks had a sign that said Pierre Poilievre for PM?
He was elected just after the convoy. You can
Yes.
see many pictures of himself pandering all the way through the convoy suddenly. And so it was just after that.
Bro, he's only been
Exactly.
here for 2
And
years.
so,
Yep.
yeah, but,
Hard to believe. Okay, Infamous, I'll have you chime in here. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming in.
Sorry, I wasn't following you guys before, so I don't want to take you guys off topic. I'd rather listen a little bit longer and see what you guys are saying.
You betcha. Ben, you want to chime in?
Sorry? Yeah, no, I guess. We really have to watch out with the fascist ideas coming in from both the religious right coming in. We have also the oligarch tech guys coming in from that. There's so many different avenues and weird left to alt-right pipelines that people get going down, and every one of them we got to try and get people to wake up off of.
Yeah, and I think the overlap here for the Venn diagram is money, right? Like, and they're really looking to exploit loopholes. So I think that, you know, more regulation and oversight into these free market enterprises that capitalize on the needs of Canadians, and you know, grabs, like, you know, a stranglehold on any kind of growth or expansion, you know, or competition, that kind of stuff. So like
Yep.
antitrust, anti-monopolies and stuff like that, we really need to be aggressively pursuing these things, you know,
Yeah, we have those
punishing
antitrust and
these.
monopoly laws. They're just not being enforced. We're not going after these
I
white
concur.
collar criminals because it's too expensive or it's just
Hmm.
gonna be a long time in court because of their lawyers. And it's like, no, but those are the people that are causing most disruption in our society. These people who are using the banks to, fund their criminal enterprises, and we need to go after those ones.
But that's Ben. That's why I want to point this out, and it's something that I've really been pointing out for quite a while now. This attack on the government is because the business community understands that the only thing really keeping them from utterly exploiting the population is the government. And the church will happily join along with it as long as they maintain their exceptional status. And that's why we're seeing so much of what we're seeing is because the business community understands that they've essentially pushed the population to its utmost limit. How do you continue to increase revenue when there's nothing left? Well, you know, all of that juicy money that the population is dumping into the government, that's a nice revenue stream that they can tap into. And like I said, the church will happily go along with it because it affects their bottom line from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I think the church, you know, kind of has like an institutionalized voting demographic, like, you know, similar to unions, although not every union member is going to vote in coordination with what the union is recommending. The same can be said for the church across the board. It's just a bigger number, right? Like, you have a lot of churches who are advocating for certain types of representation, and they mask that in different, or they frame it with different wording, like, you know, family values and core values, or remember whens and stuff like that. But like, you know, we need to be able to look at those things in public and say, hey, you know, that's a red flag.
Absolutely. Absolutely happy. And this is the thing. I have read on American. I don't know how it goes for Canada. I think it's the same. They have to have they have to be apolitical, I believe is what it's called. Because if they're caught giving money to political affiliations or political groups who are running for president or prime minister or something like that, they lose their status of non-tax, of non-exemption tax. What is that? Can't
Purple
see when you
Mr.
read it.
Freezy.
Oh, of course, it's a purple Mr. Freezy. But again, it's like,
Mr.
why
Free.
can't we why can't we crack down on the organizations that are literally giving these politicians more and more money? Like, the dinners that they have are $1,750 a plate. They shouldn't be able to do that money. They shouldn't be able to own properties. If you're going to run for prime minister, you should be able to work a 9 to 5 job at the money that we get paid at. See how much they do then. Because they still don't do enough now to earn what they get paid, and they get paid more than what. It boggles my brain, and my brain is scrambled by the time I try to figure this stuff out. I can't do it. I can't with this anymore. Stop.
Alrighty, guys, it's 7:30, so we're drawing right near the end of the show here. So I'm just going to throw this out there to the panel for kind of a give me your last thoughts. But obviously, everybody has heard today, over the last couple of days at least, Naheed Nenshi is calling for a full-blown investigation
Let's do
into
it.
Dirty Danielle Smith. And so I just want to throw that question at the panel. What do you think? Is this just par for the course for the UCP, which is pretty much what I think? What do you guys think? Quick last parting comment, and then we'll say goodbye for the night.
I haven't seen any consequences for politicians ripping off the people, and I don't expect there will be any consequences. So I'm holding my breath.
I think they need a investigation where they do it outside of the RCMP because we know how many good old boys are in the RCMP, and I will use that term, good old boys in the RCMP, and good old boys in the government. So we know there's all those buddy, we'll give you no, don't take bribes, kick her out, suspend her with no fucking pay, let the people decide what is best for our province because I guarantee you, the moment that whole thing is suspended, the whole thing is done, she'll sell us to America. Like she'll try to sell us to America. She's already doing it. She's trying to privatize our healthcare more. She just dismantled like our entire healthcare system. They're going after the disability community now because of ACE payments, and it's a nightmare to live here. But I cannot get out of this province because if I do, I lose all my funding and I'm homeless. So
Yeah.
I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. So let's get Danielle Smith, put her put her feet to the fire, hold her accountable, and get shit done. Canada needs to hold their political leaders' feet to the fire. That's all they need to do, and that's what I stand on. Good night, everybody. Miigwech. I love you all.
Miigwech.
I'm signing off.
Good night, Marshy.
Right.
Happy, what do you have to say? Okay, Angela, go ahead. We'll wait for Happy to come
Okay,
back.
I may not be in Alberta, but I'll tell you one thing. She is more dangerous. Everybody thought Kenny was something, but she's far worse than Kenny was. She's
Kenny's
more
proven to be
dangerous.
an amateur, right?
Yeah.
Kenny was an amateur, like you said, but she's more dangerous because she went over there with her Kevin O'Leary. She's connected to Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
She will sell out Alberta in a heartbeat. She will.
Agreed. Miss Radical?
I agree with everything Angela said. I do have to say though, the sellout has already happened. It's a little bit late for Alberta. We lived in Alberta during the Kenny era in COVID. And when I looked at the writing on the wall, and we follow politics closely in the United States as well. And the minute Danielle Smith said light bulb, you know what, and mimic Trump's words, we were like packing our bags and we left. And I'm not saying everybody can do that or should do that. We definitely took some risks and stuff like that. But some people looked at me and said I was a little extreme. Now I'm looking back going, how do I find room in my house to get my friends here from there?
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Happy, have you got a thought there?
I think this is what we all expected. This is what we've been screaming about, and everybody in Alberta was like, "Nah, nah, 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 nah." She's got everything is fine. Everything is great. She's moving us forward. She's taking care of healthcare. She's got a plan. That's not private healthcare. She's not trying to bring in private healthcare. The whole time gaslighting us like we're lunatics and we can't see the writing on the wall. It's absurd that anybody should be shocked or surprised. And I would like to again point at the voting turnout. And it's time to be accountable as leftists as well. Like we cannot expect every single thing that we want as like a policy to come to fruition the instant we make up our mind that we're going to support somebody, work with people, move forward, and then evolve and progress that way.
Thanks, Happy. The infamous. Last thoughts?
Love you guys.
On Danielle Smith.
You betcha.
I don't know. She just seems so terrible. I feel like she is a Trump supporter, and she could definitely be a way for that ideology to grow in Canada. So
Utterly agree.
I don't know how to get rid of her. Like I have no information on that. I'm pushing for general strike. Like in all these conversations I've been having, I just try to say general strike because I kind of feel that's our only tool in the bag. It seems like, dare I say, radical to like walk out on the streets and say no, we're shutting this down. But I almost think all the other talk we're having is just distracting us. It's only wasting our time while it gives more time for shit to continue to get worse and worse and worse, making it more and less likely that we will have a chance to stop what's going on. I know it's only in the States right now, or it's the biggest threat in the States right now, and in Canada it's still life as usual. But I don't see us turning back. I don't see us going back to the old days and like, oh, we'll just vote in this guy, and if we can just make this one rule, that's all gone. It's great for us to think about that and think about the way that it was, but this is a brand new world. BRICS is here. The America is falling. Like we cannot deny that this is happening. Canada is going to be a prize for the rest of the world to come and get us for our natural resources because we cannot protect it. We're so spread out and have such a small population. We can't really like put together a force to stop. But on the other hand, that would make us hard to be occupied. And I don't want to get into like what it would look like in World War III because I don't know. But all I know is that the old days are gone, and we're living in a new world. And I really feel like a general strike is our only tool. Like I'm trying to put out misinformation as well. Like I'm trying to tell right-wing people that all their meetings are being infiltrated, that the RCMP are onto them. Like I don't want them going and doing secret meetings. I want them to be afraid to go meet in secret. Like I want them to be weak, but I don't feel like I have a lot of power over them. But a little bit of misinformation in there because they are conspiracy theorists to begin with. So their brain, they already think that kind of. So for me to reinforce those thoughts kind of seems like easy pickings sort of thing. Like it's an easy thing for me to do to say that. But I don't know. That's just where I'm at. Like I'm super stressed out. I'll put it out there. I'm super stressed. I don't know if I follow it too much, but I just feel like why aren't more people freaking out? Like why aren't the people in my town freaking out? Like then I see stuff on TikTok where the Americans are saying they don't even know that Canada's pissed off. They haven't even heard about the trade war. Like I don't know if they're in La La Land. I don't know what their news is like. I don't know what their social media is like. Like
Fox News don't tell them that stuff, and neither does Newsmax. So thanks very much, Infamous. I totally agree with you. The amount of stress that we're under, part of this, understand, is manufactured. It is meant to send us over the edge, for us to lose focus and start operating purely on emotion and just completely avoid all of our actual thinking capacities. But thanks for popping in, Infamous. I totally get you, man. Ben, what do you have to say for a final thought here on Dirty Danielle?
On Dirty Danielle, oh man, she needs to be investigated to the fullest. And really, excuse me, sorry. Really, I hope it CSIS gets on it and they bring forth charges under Section 46 of the Criminal Code. That's the treachery, being a traitor. And I would like to see CC 46 investigative of O'Leary. And well, I mean, Musk is a Canadian citizen. He should be charged. I mean, we've all seen it. I've been afraid of the multiple witness syndrome and that nobody's reported it. And I've almost called the police myself to be like, hey, just in case nobody's reported it, can we get this guy charged?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Alrighty,
Yeah, that's it. Investigate to the fullest. We need to have elections without agents of Musk involved.
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, and Doug Ford cutting off that Starlink thing. I don't think that's it's today isn't the time to discuss it, but that Starlink thing could be an entire subject on its own for another Saturday. But I wanted to thank my entire panel. We're past our 7:30 closing time. I wanted to thank everybody for coming in. Remember, clapping is tapping, sharing is caring. I appreciate all of my panel that came in today. Appreciate all of our viewers. Beaver Politics is done by the peoples, for the peoples. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next week on Radicalized. And remember to stay radical.
take care.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.